Hello my friends and welcome, my name is Dennis and this is the latest update from Ukraine. So it's been confirmed even by Pentagon that North Korean soldiers for the first time took part in military operations against Ukraine. And you know, there are just dozens of those videos shared in the internet showing definitely, I think, North Korean soldiers. So combining all of the evidence coming together with official information, I may say that definitely they're North Koreans and they're fighting. Yes, still we're waiting for the real evidence because there could be a couple of the percent that those are Burats, but they don't speak Russian at all. Usually Burats speak some words in Russian at least. And here we have the video.
No. Маску, пусть оденут, да и все. Да? Маску.
Put the mask on, so they are filming those.
И кто все равно-то знает, да?
Come on, nobody knows them anyway, so this is probably Burat, but this is allegedly the North Korean soldier. Well, before it's been reported that North Koreans will be deployed into Burat regiments or battalions just to hide their presence. There is also the second part of the video that I cannot show you. Well, North Koreans already have losses on the front lines, and to hide the losses among North Koreans, Russians use flamers to just burn identity, basically faces of those soldiers. The video with that was filmed on Ukrainian drone. Yesterday I saw this picture, allegedly also North Korean, lying somewhere relaxing on the front lines, surrounded by the snow, the Russian winter environment. This photo was also taken in the Kursk region, so Russians use North Koreans as meat waves. It is understandable from their tactics. I also shared the full video about their failed offensive, I mean North Korean failed offensive. Again, the link is in the video description below. However, these tactics worked for Russia because after the failed North Korean attack, Russia attacked from the flanks with capable forces and they took the ground. So the main idea here is to deflect the attention of Ukrainian army, make it to concentrate the forces in particular direction and then attack from the flank. So yes, Russia took the ground. The same tactics Prigozhin used in his Wagner army, for example, in the Battle of Bakhmut. Then there were straightforward strikes with Russian prisoners, but capable Wagner army forces attacked from the flank, so the idea is the same. And unfortunately it still works, so let's go to the military map update. Again, the Kursk region here, so it was yesterday, yeah, it's better like this, yesterday and today they've took quite a lot of fields. The Mykov 73 also confirms that information, so there were numerous of the attacks. Probably this one was North Korean and Russians just attacked from the flanks. After all, North Koreans who survived retreated from the battlefield, but Russians continued to push hard. Here Ukraine also has some sort of the counterattack and Russians also continue to push from many of the directions. There was some sort of the break in Russian attacks in the Kursk region, but it seems like they gathered enough forces, also North Koreans, and they want to restart their strikes. If Russians were able to break through the minefields, it would be hard to stop them. So for Ukraine it's important to mine the new area. Guys, even though my channel is biased, it's pro-Ukrainian, but here you'll not find pink ponies propaganda, something like that. I tell the things as they are, based on the evidence, on reports coming from the front lines, and I also analyze the reports from our enemy. And here they filmed what happened in the Kursk region after this recent strike, combined North Korean and Russian forces. Analyzing those photos, I may say that Ukraine lost at least 3 of the Bradleys. That's the huge loss actually. Well, they're not lost completely, but severely damaged, and Ukraine cannot evacuate those from the gray area. Yes, 100% this image is fresh. It filmed in the Kursk region. The conditions are the same, snowy. This Bradley also was disabled. Crew successfully left the vehicle. So definitely Ukraine didn't expect the Russian breakthrough at this particular spot. Also in the snowy conditions, it's very easy to find the vehicles. It's the demasking fact, and in general it's way more difficult to fight during this period of the year. Again, I refer to Task and Purpose channel. The great job Chris done attending the Kursk region, and here he filmed Bradleys as well and the damages that they usually take.
All armored crews that I spoke to were unanimous in agreement that was their main concern.
What hit that?
FPV drones. Currently the scariest thing is the FPV. They are attached on this fiber optic cable. REBs, REBs, also known as electronic warfare devices, do not jam fiber optic. There are a lot of REBs. We have 6 of them. Each one is on its own wave, on their own frequency. They do their job.
You can see Russian FPV drones have struck many of the 47th Bradleys using cords that are tethered to it. These drones are typically armed with RPG munitions strapped to them for kamikaze runs, constantly circling above, always hunting them in a deadly game of cat and mouse. They reminded me of the improvised explosive devices I faced in Iraq, except now they'd evolved into a nightmare with wings.
So yes, unfortunately Russians managed to produce many of those fiber optic cable drones. And it's not like in Ukraine then volunteers do most of the job for the drones. No, they have the serial production by the Russian industrial complex, military industrial complex in this case. Well, our guys say that the Russians learn on Ukrainian experience, then the Russians invest and they came out with their own solutions based on this Ukrainian experience. Like Ukraine, for example, started to use the FPV drones at first, then Russia took this idea and they mastered it. Basically because they have more resources. Yes, they still have corruption, but with this overwhelming resource, that corruption doesn't feel that much as in Ukraine. Well, after all, as I may judge, the North Korean soldiers matter, but those are not the elite forces or something like that. No, those will be used for the mid-waves, as Russia started to use those. Russians took the ground for the last 24 hours with the help of those mid-waves, and now the question goes for this very important crossroad. Whoever controls this supply connection, and now we may not say who controls that because it's in a gray area, but if Russia takes it further, they may advance using those roads, which are quite critical in case of the muddy weather conditions. And this video I've took from the Russian channels, probably North Korean soldier explaining how to deal with the drones.
Конечно, засеби, бля. 저걸로. 늑대. 4.
Four drone.
땅땅땅땅땅땅땅 해. 땅땅땅땅 해가지고 3.
Good guy. Good guy.
Well, Russians interpreted it like he shot down 3 of the drones. I know how they came to this conclusion, but since this guy is alive, maybe. And brats, they know at least some of the Russian. This guy doesn't know anything. This screenshot shows the cluster munition shell of the HIMARS missile, probably Gimler's standard one. Allegedly, this video came from the Kursk Oblast, so Ukraine tries to stop the advancing Russian and North Korean forces, even using HIMARS. The mainstream media like The Economist also came out with their articles about the Kursk operation of Ukraine. As it is expected, the situation deteriorates for Ukrainian army during the winter time because first of all, any sort of the army requires more supplies during the winter time, but because of the bad weather conditions, there are not enough logistic supply roads. In the Kursk area, which is controlled by Ukraine, there are just a few of the roads with a good pavement. And then the temperature fluctuates from minus to plus, again to minus. It's very, very difficult. That's the current picture there, and The Economist tells about the case. My friends, if you want to support the job that I do on YouTube, you might join my Patreon. The Patreon page is available with my personal link in the video description right below. Thank you so much for maintaining my motivation. I think like around 2 weeks ago, I referred to this Russian general who is the usual speaker during the military meetings in the Russian army. His name is, or it's better to say was, Lieutenant General Kirillov. Why was? Well, because this morning we have the breaking news which happened just a couple of hours ago. He was zeroed in Moscow. The address where it happened is Ruzzian Prospect building 2. Just a random building in Moscow. I wonder if he used to live there. Or maybe he visited someone there. Maybe it's even the Russian military building. The Russian prosecution office already started the investigation and they confirmed that the guy was zeroed. Lieutenant General Kirillov was the head of the Radiation, Chemical and Biological Protection Troops of the Russian Armed Forces, and also he was like, as I told you, speaker in the Russian ministry meetings. Are there some sort of the internal clashes happening between the Russian military elite? Well, it could happen. And they may use the wars of Ukrainians to justify their own violence. Or it could be the operation of the Ukrainian military intelligence, so GUR with Budanov in charge. Because before we know that they've done some sort of the similar stuff. So yeah, minus one more Russian general, quite a big one. I guess that Russia lost more than 20 of those since the start of this full-scale war. So even being the Russian general is not that safe. This electrical scooter was found in a place, and Russian officials think that there could be some of the device planted on this. Yes, the scooter mostly survived, but it could be the direct kaboom. As an example, this United States anti-personnel mine, it has the direction, so put front towards the enemy, it says. That's what I call direct or directed kaboom. Well, actually, there were two of the persons who were zeroed, General himself and his driver, and this is their car. The interesting thing about this Russian general that just yesterday he was put in a wanted list by the Ukrainian SBU, the Ukrainian Internal Intelligence or Security Forces, the analog of the American FBI. So this Russian general was in a wanted list just for 20 hours. Kind of the fast prosecution, execution, if it was Ukraine after all. Alright, now let's jump again to the front lines review, and here's a very terrible situation for Ukrainian army in Makarovka village, because Russians managed to move even more for the last night, and for sure our guys encircled. I wonder about this one. Is it the elevation? Let me check out the 3D map. This is the 3D map. You can see it's a little different from the one we see before, but I would trust more to the deep state, to the Maikau 73, because they rely on the visual information, and also we have the reports from our soldiers that definitely our group in Makarovka is encircled. So here this area has already been taken by the enemy. Enemy crossed this tiny little river over here. They advanced forward, cutting this road. So again, we are speaking about this height over here and this height over here. It's impossible just to go through it, as far as I see, and the Russians are very close to it, so they may concentrate their fire by the time Ukraine will try to leave this spot. Well, I guess I pointed out the proper elevation here. Yes, I think so. And now there is the threat for the next village as well, and Russia will continue their assault towards Neskuchne. Guys, honestly, I think that Syrskyi should leave his position as the commander of Ukrainian army, because he is unable to handle of what is happening on the front lines and what is happening inside of the Ukrainian army. Because first of all, those are the lives of our soldiers. Syrskyi as the main commander bears the responsibility for what is happening elsewhere, and he's responsible for this as well. Yes, there are many of the commanders in this area who did this, but after all, Syrskyi is responsible. It is not the first case like that, and what frustrates me that even for me, for a YouTuber who has no information in general, it was understandable kind of long time ago that Ukraine should withdraw the forces from the spot. But now there will be life losses because of the wrong command actions. And it is not just about that. Yesterday actually I was shocked about the news which were posted online with the real evidence, with the real proofs, thankfully to Ukrainian journalists who rose that topic. It's about 211 Pontoon Bridge Brigade. I used the Google Translate for this article, so the translation may not be correct. So it's not bullying the military, it's the own torture of the own soldiers. The command of brigade, including this colonel, were responsible for the tortures. Why did they do it? Basically, they wanted some of the money from their own soldiers. Yes, and there were some of the images and videos that I cannot even show you here. What the command of this brigade done, usually Russians do to the prisoners, Ukrainian prisoners. They beat the soldiers and demand money from them for any sort of the wrongdoing. Like, if you don't want to be beaten, pay money. Like, there was no any kind of the prosecution, nothing. Guys, I'm still shocked, because what's the difference between those freaking bastards, I mean those commanders, and those who provide those tortures with Russians? I think that there is no difference, just different flag, that's it. Absolutely 100% they should be prosecuted, but I would like honestly for them to appear somewhere in the Russian prison, for Russians to behave the same like they behaved towards their own soldiers. Again guys, it's not the fake, it's the real information. Ukrainian military already dismissed the command of the brigade, they started the investigation. Some of the lawyers already reported sure that they've told about those cases even before several months ago, but everyone was silent about those cases by the time. And it's not just a single one. If you want to know what I censored there is the Ukrainian soldier just mounted to the cross, and he was left there without food, water. Basically, it's the torture, it's the war crime performed by the own commanders against the own army. And again, guys, my own personal opinion that the high Ukrainian military command, including the General Commander Syrskyi, should also bear responsibility for those kind of the cases and for what is happening on the front lines. I mean, yes, Russia is taking the ground, they have the advantage, but because of the wrong actions, Ukrainian troops are being encircled in many of the directions, as we see. Because I reviewed the military maps for a very, very long time, and it has never been like that, actually. Syrskyi took the command after Avdiivka had fallen, and since that time I don't see the huge success for Ukraine, even in defense operations. Yes, you may say Kursk, but now Ukrainian army is losing the ground there as well. So the main aim for the Kursk operation, I think after all, wasn't reached. Now the best of the best brigades are fighting in Kursk, and you saw that in the beginning of the video they also have losses. So this case is absolutely unacceptable. The only difference probably between Ukraine and Russia here that we speak about it, like there's the official investigation, journalists publish their own information about the stuff. Like Ukraine is not trying to hide it, but Russians try, and they also have this sort of the behavior towards their own soldiers. And you know, guys, because of those kind of the cases, Ukrainian men wouldn't like to join Ukrainian army. There are not enough volunteers, and Ukraine is forcibly mobilizing the army men, which is also bad. People go there with no motivation and they leave their positions. They also desert from Ukrainian army and hide somewhere. The bad thing that in most of the cases you don't have the choice to join those very good reliable brigades like 47th, 3rd Assault Brigade, K2, and also the Azov regiment. There were the cases that people wanted to go there and the brigades accepted those people, but at the final stage Ukrainian command just sent those people to the other brigades, whatever. So the command of the elite brigades were disappointed, as well as those people who were thrown to the area they didn't want to go. With that attitude, it's not the NATO standard army, it's Soviet army, just smaller one. And the smaller Soviet army cannot fight against the bigger Soviet army, which is the army of the Russian Federation. So as Ternenko, for example, says, usually it's our biggest drone volunteer. We should change or we die. And my duty here is to give you this real information which you may not hear from the other pro-Ukrainian channels. Here it's not hooray, hooray, we're winning, Russians are just schmogbigs. No. Unfortunately, the situation is not that good. By the way, I've took this photo from internet. Marcus, who was also the part of the command of the 47th Magura Brigade, recently he also came out with the story of what happened to him and to the command of the brigade. Unfortunately, guys, even in elite brigades, the situation with the military command is not that great. There are no torches, as you saw before, but the command is not that competent, as Marcus said. And I trust this guy because he was the one who formed actually this brigade. But later on, unfortunately, he lost his position in brigade because of the incompetent command, which was appointed there by the higher ranked generals. I guess it's actually hard for me to record the videos like today, but anyways, I have to do it. So let's go to the military map update. In Kurakhove direction there was the change, so yesterday and today the situation in Uspenivka. I wonder what is happening with our guys on the ground. So they left Hanivka for sure. Was there the chance for them to leave Uspenivka? Were they encircled in Hanivka? I don't have that information for now, unfortunately. Russians also advanced to Konstantinopolsk, so today they took more ground here. I'll continue to search for more information about the Ukrainian soldiers who were actually trapped over there. There is also expansion over here, so today Russians went across those fields. Kurakhove, today the movement here, Russians took control fully over this road and the expansion of the gray zone in the town. And there is also the advancement of the Russian army in Shevchenko, so the Ukrainian counterattack after all wasn't successful. Russians finally managed to break through and they are advancing. They went to this lake and probably will take this small road to go to Peshchane from two of the directions, from this side and also from this side. Well, before there was the Ukrainian strike and Russian forces had to retreat. But now here everything changed and the gray area expansion is already over here. I guess Russians already took Shevchenko under control. So today just a light expansion. Only few buildings are in the gray zone. Here I see that logic for Russia is to take Peshchana with this advancement and also continue the move from Shevchenko like two vector strike directly towards Pokrovsk. About Zaporizhzhia direction and the information about the possible Russian strike from the south, well, we have different of the information coming. Some Ukrainian officials say that the attack is imminent, Russia is gathering forces, but some say that it's the fake Russian disinformation. Whom should I trust? I don't know. I don't think that Russia has enough forces to act on the south right now. They mostly concentrated in Donetsk and Kursk, obviously. Only good news probably we have from the front lines that the Russian assault towards the Sumy region failed completely. I'm waiting for the new update because Ukraine managed to repel the Russian forces mostly using the drones. And later on our infantry went to the place. We have the full confirmation from the area. So for the next update I expect that we'll not see this red area any longer. By the way, just yesterday there was the big meeting of Putin and the Russian military command. You may see the Russian defense minister Belousov and Gerasimov, who sits with his usual Alka face. Well, from what I heard, Putin is not willing to stop. He is speaking about the success of the Russian army in Ukraine, of some certain breakthrough, then the Russian army takes more ground, and their goal is to take more territories of Ukraine, basically annexing them to Russia. And he told just about the peace proposal from Hungary to ceasefire on Christmas, but he stated that Kiev refused to do it. The Russian regime and the Hungarian one are now working together to create the trap for Ukraine, a diplomatic trap, to accuse Ukraine of not willing to negotiate with Russia. Russia is ready to negotiate, yes. Just surrender your territories to Russia, get rid of your army, and Russia will start negotiations. Yeah. So Putin is sure that all of the military goals of his operation will be achieved, and Russia spent the vast part of its resources on military. Yes, it is understandable, but how long Russian economy may allow it to happen? I guess that after Russia may attack the next year, but after it will have severe problems with its army men, plus again economy situation will be not that great. That's why for Ukraine it's just important to hold. There is no other way. If Ukraine negotiates now with Russia, Russia will attack Ukraine once again, just a little later. And as I've told you, for negotiations, Ukraine should give up its territory, even the territory which is now under Ukrainian control, with many of the cities, like for example Zaporizhzhia and Kherson, which was liberated a couple of years ago. The Russian representative in United Nations, Nebeza, also stated that Russia is not willing to negotiate with Ukraine. They are quite strange. They are saying about it openly already, and they are accusing Ukraine for not willing to negotiate. It is just a nonsense. Yesterday there was also the big press conference of Donald Trump, where he also answered the questions about Ukraine, where he said that he is not yet sure whether Ukraine should give up its territories or not. He also didn't invite Zelensky to attend his inauguration ceremony, but he said that if Zelensky wants, he may come. Which from the diplomatic point of view is basically a humiliation of Zelensky and Ukrainian government in this case. There was also his strange rhetorics about the permission for Ukraine to use long-range ATACMS missiles. Trump said that it was some sort of the escalation and the wrong move because after it, Russia deployed North Koreans, which is obviously nonsense because before there were North Koreans reported in Russia in the training facilities. Later on they went to the Kursk region, and only after that Ukraine got the permission to use ATACMS or Storm Shadow on the Russian territory. Again, Trump says that he wants to reach the peace in Ukraine, and I guess I know why Trump doesn't speak about his peace plan. Simply, it is not out there. It doesn't exist. They'll try to come out with some different ideas, solutions, but there is no step-by-step scenario or algorithm to act in this case. It was just his brave rhetorics during the election campaign that he'll end this war in a matter of 24 hours. It is the usual stuff that politicians say. For example, Poroshenko back in 2014, also during his election campaign, this is the former Ukrainian president by the way, he said that he will stop this war in a matter of hours. And after Zelensky was elected, also saying that he will stop this war, you just need to negotiate with Russia and stop shooting. And then the situation became even worse. It's impossible to negotiate with Russia if Putin doesn't want to negotiate and if he thinks that the Russian economy is quite fine to continue this war. The only way to stop it is to arm Ukraine and apply more sanctions on Russia. That's the goal. Like, this war should be not profitable for Putin, but Putin sees that his forces are taking the ground. He doesn't care about the life losses, but he wants like to rebuild the new Russian empire, and he will continue no matter what Trump says, by the way. Putin will humiliate Trump after all. It's kind of strange that Trump and his team do not understand that. And they actually continue to bully Ukraine in the social media and during the press conferences. Because how else you can name that? I didn't invite him, but he's free to come if he wants. Yes, rhetorics is really strange. This video I've also took from the Russian channels. Those are the Russian newcomers, warriors, youngsters. This guy is 56 years old, I guess, and this guy is something like that as well. So people after 50s join the Russian army just to earn millions of rubles for their families. And this guy is 63 years old, which is completely crazy. The oldest guy there is 46 years old. How do I know it? Well, I will just put this out here.
У тебя что тут? Ебать, о, красавчик, сколько лет? 55. 55.
I know Russian, so previous guy said that he is 55 years old. So Russia definitely has the crisis with their army men because they're hiring elderly people. People who probably served in the Soviet army before then. They were very, very young, but in the Soviet army the training was poor compared to, for example, American standards. And now they have to train from the scratch. Their movements are quite clumsy, and I do not expect anyone from them to return back home. They will be used for the mid-wave attacks. And now guys, please don't forget to press your huge like to this video. By doing so, you help me a lot. As usual, I wish you all a peaceful sky wherever you are, and have a great time.